This first movement we're going to be measuring is wrist extension and wrist flexion, and in order to measure both angles, it's the same setup. So you've got your radius on the thumb side, you've got that first metacarpal on your index finger, and then you've got the radial styloid. So that's where we're going to be lining up our tool here. We're going to be putting that stationary arm parallel to this radius. We're going to be lining up the axis to the radial styloid, and then the moving arm on the metacarpal, and we'll be measuring this joint right here. So now that we're nice and set up, we're going to measure the flexion first. Good, you can relax. That reads 42 degrees. So now we'll start over, and next we're going to measure that extension. You're good to extend. Good, you're good to relax, and that reads 58 degrees. So the next set of movements we're going to be measuring is the wrist radial deviation and the wrist ulnar deviation. And so in order to set this up, we're basically going to be lining everything up with this third metacarpal, and the third metacarpal is this middle finger here. And so at the base of it is our wrist. And so we're going to want to place the axis at the base of that wrist directly under that third metacarpal. We're going to want to place our stationary arm directly in the middle of that forearm. And then we're going to want to place our moving arm on this metacarpal here. So that when the person bends their wrist, we measure the angle that way. So now that we are set up, we're going to go for the radial deviation. Good, this is 20 degrees. Now you can relax. Now we're going to do ulnar deviation, which is right at 30 degrees. The last joint we'll be measuring is the metacarpal phalangeal joint. It's on metacarpals 1 through 4. It's this base joint right here. So depending on which finger you are measuring for, you want to line up this stationary right above whichever metacarpal. So I'm going to be doing the index finger, so I'm going to be placing that stationary arm on top of that index finger metacarpal. We want to make sure that the axis is right on top of that MP joint, and then the moving arm is going to be on this distal metacarpal, so it will look like this. So now that it's all set up, we're going to flex that finger. And like I said, you can measure the passive range of motion for this one. So I'm getting resistance to about here, and it reads 80 degrees.